Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to take you through my top 5 exercises for you to develop your abs. Now, before I start, there are a few things that I need to say. The first thing is that if you are wanting six-pack abs, the main thing that you need to do to get them is to diet down to an appropriate body fat percentage where you can see your abs. There is no exercise that you can do if you're at like 30% body fat that will allow you to see your abs. What you need to do is reduce the amount of fat in between your abs and your skin so that that fat doesn't obscure the definition of the abs and that you can actually see your ab muscles. There's no exercise you can do to directly target that ab fat. That is a myth. Spot reduction is a myth. What you have to do is just get in a caloric deficit and overall maintain that until you're at a lean enough body fat percentage for your abs to show through. Doing these ab exercises will do two things though. The first thing is, because it is increasing the size of your abdominal muscles, you will actually be able to see your abs at a slightly higher body fat percentage. So if you were to normally see your abs at around 15% body fat, you might be able to start to see your abs at 18% body fat. And if you were to normally sort of have a good, well-defined six-pack at 12%, if you grow your ab muscles using these exercises today, you might be able to see your abs at like 15%. So it will slightly raise the body fat percentage that you can start to see and have well-developed abs. But if you're way higher than that, if you're at, like I say, 30% body fat, you won't be able to see your abs and you need to focus on dieting down first. The next thing that I need to say is that with all of the exercises today, it is imperative that you exhale when contracting your abs. When you inhale and air goes in, your diaphragm expands and your abdominal wall is stretched and your abs are stretched out. You cannot contract a muscle optimally, contract it when it is being stretched. It just doesn't work. They're literally the opposite. So you need to empty your all the air in your body and breathe out in order to contract down when doing all of the ab exercises today. And the final thing that I need to say is that, as always, there are 4 things that I am looking for from an exercise when judging how good it is. The first is how much of a stretch the muscle gets. The second is how much of a contraction the muscle gets. The third is how isolated the muscle. And the fourth is how heavy you can load the muscle or the exercise. I prioritize isolation because if you isolate a muscle fully, it has to respond to the training stimulus you apply. Even if you have a reduced range of motion or you're not loading it as heavy, if that muscle is doing all of the work, it has to respond to that training stimulus and it will improve over time. You'll hear different things from other people in the fitness industry. That is just my opinion. As with all of this list today, feel free to disagree with me at any time and comment it down below. But without further ado, let's get to it. So coming in spot number 5 are cable crunches. Now there are 2 main advantages to cable crunches. The first one is that you get a great contraction at the bottom, provided that you exhale and let all the air out of your stomach, like I said in the intro. The second main advantage, and an advantage it has over some of the other exercises on this list, is that it is very easy and practical to progressively overload. You simply move the pin down the weight stack and increase the weight you're using. With some of the other exercises on this list, you're holding a free weight. And as you get stronger, that weight actually increases. It can get in the way of you trying to contract your abs, and it becomes larger, more unwieldy. It requires more muscles to stabilize, and that obviously reduces the isolation on the abs. So cable crunches are great for progressively overloading, and the exercise obviously stays the same. You just hold the attachment and crunch down the same. There's nothing getting in the way. There are, however, 2 main weaknesses of cable crunches. The first one is that you don't get a great stretch on the abs. This is because when you are standing up, the cable is pulling upwards. And to try and stretch the abs optimally, the weight should be pulling backwards against your shoulders and trying to stretch your abs out. And then what your abs do is contract in and pull you and cave you forward. So For abs to be stretched well, the weight should be pulling back and your back should be arching. However, with cable crunches, the cable is just pulling upwards against your handles, and if anything, your arms are what's stopping it from going upwards and your abs are just relaxing. That then leads on to the next main issue, which is isolation. When doing cable crunches, because your arms are holding that weight, it is easy to just extend the weight down with your arms and sort of politely follow your hands with your torso. That means that your arms are doing all the work and your abs aren't actually doing any of the work. To overcome this, what you need to make sure is that your hands are fixed against your body and that you allow your hands to sink into your body with the weight and push against your torso so that your abs are actually contracting against that weight. And the other muscle that can get involved is your hip flexors. If you find that your shoulders and hips aren't actually getting closer together when doing this exercise, you're sort of just hinging forward from the hips, you might just be contracting your hip flexors and moving the weight down forward. So what's really important is to think when contracting your abs of your shoulders coming down and touching your hips. Contract down. And the final thing to go along with that is it is very easy to lean into the weight and use momentum. Just use your body weight to shift the weight. Obviously try and avoid that. So the main thing that you're going to try and do is keep from your hips to your feet planted and fixed in position. I would keep them vertical, and then try and allow the weight to sink into your chest and move your shoulders to your hips. Exhale and crunch down when doing this exercise. If you do that, cable crunches are a fantastic exercise, and I would use them in conjunction with some of the other exercises on this list. And coming in spot number 4 are GHD sit-ups. These are great because you get a good contraction at the top, and most importantly, you get the best stretch of all exercises on this list on the abs. You actually send your back all the way arched and all the way back so that your abs are fully stretched. In all these other exercises, you sort of just come back to neutral and then go back into crunching. With GHD sit-ups, you actually go all the way back and fully stretch the abs. The issue with GHD sit-ups is that you don't isolate the abs perfectly. The hip flexors are heavily involved to help pull you up, particularly if you keep your back straight and are just pulling yourself up with your hip flexors. That will definitely target the hip flexors. Be mindful of not allowing that to happen and think of using your abs and crunching your shoulders towards your knees. That will help you use the abs. And the other weakness is that progressively overloading GHDs can be annoying. You have to hold the weight. I would hold like a dumbbell or kettlebell across my chest. But then at the top, when you're sort of sitting, the weight is grounding downwards, not into your chest against your abs. When you're halfway through, the weight is going down into your chest perfectly against your abs when you're holding yourself sort of flat. As you go back into the stretch portion, the weight actually wants to come upwards, which is downwards when you're leaning all the way back and down. So gravity's pulling the weight up, not against your abs, but sort of up, and you do have to use your arms to stabilize the weight. So they are involved a bit. Again, that is damaging the isolation of the abs. It's just more of an annoyance really, but once you get used to it, it is not that bad, and I would still use GHD sit-ups if you have access to a GHD. I guess that is the final weakness of this exercise, is that many gyms don't have a GHD. They're most commonly seen in CrossFit gyms and maybe a few strength gyms, but commercial gyms are often lacking in not having a GHD, which is a tragedy because they're a fantastic bit of kit. But if you do have access to a GHD, I would definitely do GHD sit-ups for their stretch more than anything. It is another way to target the abs that most of the exercises on this list don't do. And I would do them in conjunction with some of the other exercises that are maybe easier to progressively overload, unlike the GHD. So doing cable crunches in conjunction with GHD sit-ups, they sort of cover each other's weaknesses. I would do them in conjunction with other exercises. Overall, GHD sit-ups, a fantastic exercise, an addition to your ab workouts. And coming in spot number 3 are crunches. All types of crunches, standard crunches on the floor, crunches with your heels raised up off the floor, crunches on a gym ball. All crunches are good crunches. Now, the main advantages of crunches are that you get a great contraction at the fully crunched position, and you isolate the abs very well. When I say abs, there are 4 different muscle groups within your abs. So the main one is the rectus abdominis. That is your six-pack abs. The famous six-pack is called the rectus abdominis. You then have the transverse abdominis, which is at the base of your abs underneath. You can't see this from the outside because it lies underneath the rectus abdominis and other muscles, but developing your transverse abdominis, as it gets stronger, it will allow you to hold your waist in, hold your stomach in, and once it gets stronger, just through day-to-day life, it will stay activated, it will stay held in slightly. So rather than fully relaxing your abs and allowing your gut to stick out, the transverse abdominis will help hold those lower abs and your gut in. So developing that is fantastic. And then finally, there are the internal and external obliques. The internal obliques are underneath, and they're both in charge of like crunching and twisting when you start to twist your spine. The external obliques are the only ones that you see, as they lie over the top of the internal obliques. So there are 2 sets of abs that you can see. The famous six-pack, the rectus abdominis, and the external obliques, which are these sort of diagonal cuts that come in and frame the abs. Crunches, regular crunches, race feet crunches, any sort of straight on crunch on a gym ball, they're all great for isolating and targeting the main rectus abdominis six-pack abs. So they are a fantastic exercise and a staple of ab training. The weaknesses are that you don't get a great stretch. That's because you sort of just lie back on the floor. The back is not arched. There is no force pulling backwards to stretch against the abs. The abs just stop sort of halfway through their range of motion. But the fact that your rectus abdominis is isolated and you get such a good contraction, I would just focus on contracting down during your crunches. Think of your shoulders touching your hips and really squeeze your abs, and you will develop your abs, particularly your rectus abdominis, the classic six-pack abs, very well with crunches. And I would use them in conjunction with some of the other exercises on this list, particularly the next exercise in spot number 2, which is twisting crunches. Leading on from crunches, the only difference is that they slightly prioritize the obliques over the rectus abdominis. So I would use them in conjunction with regular crunches to help you develop both your six-pack rectus abdominis abs and your obliques at the side to help frame your abs. These are only rated slightly higher because the obliques are rarely hit, and most exercises do actually target the rectus abdominis. So these land in spot number 2 over regular crunches because they hit the obliques, which are targeted slightly less than the regular rectus abdominis abs. But both are great. I would use both in conjunction. You can superset regular crunches with twisting crunches. If you do like a set of regular crunches, your abs are fatigued, you can go straight into twisting crunches. When doing twisting crunches, I would definitely advise to alternate each time. Don't do all of your crunches on one side and then all of your crunches on the other side. It is a bit weird. And if you do it that way, you can fatigue the other muscles. So stuff like your rectus abdominis and your transverse abdominis, they are still involved in doing twisting crunches. And if you do all of your twisting crunches on one side, then you will still have fatigued your rectus abdominis and transverse abdominis before going to the other side. So you will hit one side more fresh and better than the other side, which is unadvisable. So I would recommend twisting from side to side. But overall, twisting crunches are a fantastic exercise, a staple in ab training, and I would definitely pair them with some other exercise that targets the classic rectus abdominis six-pack abs. That could be regular crunches, it could be some of the other exercises on this list. And coming in spot number 1 are decline sit-ups. Decline sit-ups are fantastic because they isolate the abs, specifically they target the rectus abdominis. You can also do twisting decline sit-ups, which I would very much recommend as well, for targeting more of the obliques. Use them interchangeably, use them together, similar to crunches and twisting crunches. Decline sit-ups also have an amazing contraction. That is because when you decline your body, at the top of the movement, you are still contracting against gravity. So if you were to do regular sit-ups, at the top, once your shoulders are above your hips, your weight is grounding vertically downwards, similar to when you're standing. You're not really working your abs. However, when you decline your body, you sit up, your shoulders aren't directly above your hips. So gravity's still pulling your torso backwards, and your abs are still having to work even at the top portion of the movement. This means that you get a killer contraction at the top of the movement, particularly because you can load this exercise heavy, and the angle that your body's at places all of the tension of this load directly onto your abs. The issues with this exercise are that you don't get the best stretch if you have a long bench, which is the most common bench. You usually hook your feet in, you can sit up, and then you lie back on the bench. Similar to crunches, where the floor's in the way, the bench is in the way of you getting a great stretch on decline. However, there are a few short benches where you can hook your feet in and the bench just comes down to your hips. If you have a bench like that, your torso can hang over the edge and hang all the way down vertically. That means that you get a great stretch on your abs, similar to on a GHD. Not quite as effective as on the GHD, but you will still get a fantastic stretch on the abs. Again, bear in mind when doing this exercise, in order to isolate the abs properly, you should think of touching your shoulders to your hips. If you just think of shifting your body upwards and you actually keep your torso straight and just sort of sit your body upwards, you are just contracting your hip flexors, and that obviously defeats the point of the movement. So to try and isolate the abs better, think of really crunching those shoulders to those hips. Overall, decline sit-ups, an amazing exercise for your abs, my favourite, and I would definitely use them as a staple of your ab training, particularly if you are fortunate to have one of those short decline benches where you can hang your body off the end. Then they're really an amazing exercise. That is it for my top 5 list. Now, quickly, before I end the video, I will address there is no plank on this list. There are no ab wheels on this list. That is because these exercises I find great for building strength, but not for building size because they have no range of motion. A plank is an isometric hold, so the abs are not crunching in and training through contractions or stretches at all during a plank. And the same with an ab wheel. The torso fundamentally doesn't crunch in. It stays in the same way even though you are going through a range of motion. It's actually a range of motion for the lats, which can also get involved. So I don't find them fantastic for hypertrophy and building the abs. They are great, one, as a cool feat of strength. If you ever see someone do an ab wheel straight off their feet and without their knees down, that is insanely impressive. And they can be used very well for building strength. I just don't find them the most effective for building abdominal size. There are also no hanging leg raises of any kind on this list. Same again, I find that one, you don't isolate them well enough from a point of you have to grip the bar, and your grip can sometimes fatigue before your abs. But two, the main one is that because the abs are not going through the range of motion and the legs are, your hip flexors often take over and just pull your legs upward, and your abs are left not doing any of the work. So that is why they are not on this list. Feel free to disagree with that in the comments. That is the end of the video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that good stuff, there will be a link in the description to my coaching services. If you don't want to have to bother looking at the top exercises for each of your muscle groups and programming and trying to stay accountable when you write your own program, if you want a coach who will keep you accountable, who will give you an optimal program based on your goals, your equipment, your time available, your life can get in the way, you want something that's optimal, that suits you, I can deliver that. Check it out in the link in the description. Thanks for watching and have a great day.